Hi, folks. Welcome back with me, Sonia, in Across the Map podcast. Okay, so here I have someone special who will accompany me to talk about something interesting. Can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you for the invitation. I am Juan Francisco Sorio. I am from Colombia, a master's student of Media and Global Development. So basically, my knowledge is mainly in humanitarian communication. I work with different NGOs and yeah, try to be an ambassador of Colombia.
Oh,
I'm trying my best.
yeah, that's great. So we've got a Colombian representative here.
Yeah.
So we will be discussing about a particular interesting topic from Narcos to Nusantara.
Who defines the national identity?
Woo! Okay. So for me, when I say I'm an Indonesian, people usually mention Bali. So like it is reduced just for Bali. And common global images when they talk about Indonesia rather than Bali, and they will say about beaches, temples, cheap travel, destination. I think Indonesia is more than Bali. How about Colombia?
Well, when I mention that I'm from Colombia, you often get the stereotype of Narcos and the
Yeah.
Pablo Escobar image. I think, well, during the 80s and 90s, Colombia suffered a lot of the violence produced by the Narcos,
Mm-hmm.
the narco terrorism. And well, right now, all the people that are going around the world, and
Yeah.
all the Colombians that are around the world are trying to change that perspective,
It is.
trying
Yeah.
to shape Colombia as more than that stereotype.
Yeah.
And,
All right. So why do these single images represent entire countries? So we will be discussing more about stereotype towards countries. How does this happen, and what are the media's can contribute to shape those narratives? What is national identity in your mind?
well, national identity in my mind is the elements that could represent you in different ways. And when I think about the national identity of Colombia, for me, it's so hard because it's complex to look
Yeah,
at
it is.
the huge difference that are between regions
Mm,
and everything. So for me, I'm from Bogota, which is the capital,
yeah.
and we received a lot of people from different regions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Bogota is kind of could be perceived as a mini representation of the whole country.
Colombia.
So
Mm.
you can find different food,
Yeah.
you can find different places to
Yeah.
hear different kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, mainly Colombia, it's a big country with huge biodiversity and
Oh,
cultural
cool,
diversity and
cool.
everything.
Yeah. And I think people nowadays are hard to distinguish between, how citizens see themselves and how they are seen internationally. Particularly like us, international students, people are often they're having stereotype seeing us. And I think identity is shaped, learned, and changed over the time. Let's move on. Let's talk about how stereotypes become dominant stories. Many people know Colombia through TV series and news headlines, and the repetition between those things. How do you see this phenomena?
Well, I think the most relevant case to explain this kind of phenomenon
Yeah,
is the Netflix series Narcos,
yeah.
which was like globally streamed
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
and mainly trying to explain the story of Pablo Escobar, but
mm-hmm,
it's often in a way that we need to admire him in the way that how he builds a
mm-hmm.
huge empire of drugs.
Okay.
So it's hard to challenge that kind of imaginaries that
Mm-hmm.
the cultural industries shaped.
Yeah.
And also for Colombians, and when I think all around the world, it's hard to challenge a stereotype that it's not in our language.
Yeah.
For example, I mean, if I want to explain what is Colombia further than just Narcos, I need to explain it in English, because nobody's going to pay
Understand.
yeah pay attention if I
Explain it
explain
in
it
Colombian.
in Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the power inequalities that we face when
Yeah,
we
yeah.
talk about identities and who shapes the national identity or the
Mm-hmm.
international perception of one country. So yeah, I think the Netflix series and some other movies or series as well are shaping an over reductive,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
oversimplified version of the
Yeah, yeah,
Colombian identity.
that's totally true. I think the same things happen like to many countries in different ways, particularly in this global era. We've got social media and Netflix and so on and so on, which represent and tell people about the stories of a certain countries, and then people just perceive it and believe it without doing any research to find the truth
Yeah.
behind it. And let's talk about Colombia living with the Narcos narrative. Um, so Colombia is perceived as historically drug violence, so real and traumatic. Does it happen as well until right now?
Well, the Pablo Escobar era
Mm-hmm.
was in the past with different actors involved
Mm-hmm.
in the conflict. Right now, we are still living by hard violence
Yeah,
and
yeah.
intern armed conflict. However, the actors are different.
Okay, yeah.
So it's hard to also try to change the narrative of national identity, ignoring the reality of
Mm-hmm.
uh, present conflict.
Yeah.
So Colombia right now it's still suffering for the guerrillas,
Okay.
which are these non-state armed groups that
Yeah.
right now own the drug production and drug trafficking
Running around.
yeah, enterprise. So
Mm.
basically, it's different, but
Still
it's
in the
still present.
same
Yeah.
way.
However, all the Colombians are trying to not be perceived just as that, because it's an
Mm-hmm.
issue that well we cannot do a lot about it,
Yeah.
but we want to be perceived as not resilient, but by the other things, the cultural things, the
Mm-hmm.
more attractive things that we have, rather than just narcos and drug trafficking. Because
Okay.
Colombia is not a consumer country.
Yeah.
We are just the producers, which is this is this is kind of funny because all ends in the power asymmetries between the regions. Because
Mm.
we just produce the thing that the other countries and continents consume.
Yeah, interesting. So yeah, how about the media nowadays is working on the shaping those narratives?
Yeah, well, I think it's very complex in the way that the media outlets right now don't cover a lot of the violence because it became
Yeah, it is
a common
normalized,
topic. Yeah.
legitimized. Yeah.
So right now, every day you can find news about social leaders
Mm.
get murdered and yeah, like attacks to the communities. But yeah, the people start to normalize those news. So the media coverage is not enough to change the narratives.
And you are young people, and particularly you work as a journalist kind of stuff. And so, what are the roles of journalists or young people to help to reshaping this image of
Yeah,
Colombia?
well, I cannot speak as journalist because I work in with organizations like in the private sector,
Yeah.
but with NGOs, but not in the media.
Mm.
So I don't know how you can challenge that. I think just people in social media are trying to challenge those narratives,
Okay.
just sharing information, trying to
Mm-hmm.
expose other aspects of the Colombian
Yeah,
culture,
yeah.
of the Colombian nature, and everything. But it's so hard, as I mentioned before,
Mm-hmm.
how to challenge those narratives in our language.
Yeah.
So it's kind of unfair in a way that we need to also speak another language to try to
Mm-hmm.
challenge the perception of the others of our country. But I think we need to promote a critical mindset,
Okay.
not just about Colombia, just I think about every country, as you mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
Reduce Indonesia's Bali is
Yeah,
also a
yeah.
mistake.
It is.
So I think as journalists or as Colombians, as people around the world, we need to promote a critical approach to everything that we saw in
On
social
social
media.
media. Yeah, yeah. I
So
think
these
yeah.
imaginaries of country, why,
Mm.
what's the reason
Yeah, I
behind?
think yeah, media plays an important role nowadays, and also recreate the history, like, and then how political power does also affect countries' image. Yeah, perceived by people around the world. And do you think like can countries reclaim their own narratives?
Yes, I
Mm-hmm.
think, well, you also need the resources to produce enough content to challenge the actual trends
Mm-hmm.
of identity. I think you could produce lots of content that challenge the identity and shapes another more inclusive
Mm.
identity. However, it's so hard to challenge
Yeah, yeah, it
the,
does take time as well.
yeah, it just
Mm-hmm.
takes time, resources,
Yeah.
but I think it's possible. It's possible to change the perception of the people about your country.
Yes, it is.
Just yeah, trying to also explain the complexities of the country. Because as I mentioned, Colombia is a big country with different regions and different,
Mm-hmm.
and each region have their own culture, their own yeah, like traditions, behaviors, and everything.
Yeah.
So you need to explain that in a way that it's easy to understand and not just reduce Colombia as
Mm.
Narcos or as just I don't know what else. Shakira. Well, Shakira is part of our culture, but it's not the only thing. So
She's famous.
yeah, she's famous,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
also we have a
So,
lot of
so like,
sports
can you
representatives.
choose the three main things to present Colombia in another way, in another perspectives?
Well, in another, yeah, it's hard to think about just
Mm-hmm.
three things, but I think mainly could be music in
Yeah,
the way that
true, true.
as I explained,
Mm-hmm.
each region have their own music, and
Yeah,
the music could share a lot of feelings and could
yes, it is.
also tell a lot about the culture.
Mm-hmm.
So I think uh, music is one of the things that I put like in the priorities of the
Mm-hmm.
Colombian identity. What other could be like biodiversity,
Biodiversity. Yeah.
just not just in animals, just also like in plants, flowers,
Mm-hmm.
products. Well, Colombia produce a lot of
Yeah.
coffee, or banana,
Bananas, good.
mm, and you know, regarding animals, you can find in
Mm-hmm.
the Amazon region lots of species. So yeah, we have music, biodiversity, and I think culture as well.
Yeah, I think
Culture
it
in
plays
general.
really important.
Yeah, we have different culture in different regions, but we have lots of also of indigenous people,
People.
indigenous
Mm-hmm.
communities. So yeah, if you are interested in look at all these things, you could go to Colombia and discover it
And do the research.
and do the research. Yeah, I think the academic field it's also could be
Yeah.
when you ask how we can challenge these
The
narratives
stereotypes. Mm-hmm.
or stereotypes. I think the research and the academic field could work uh,
Contributing
can
to,
contribute
yeah,
very.
reshaping those images
Yeah,
of our
yeah,
countries.
yeah.
Yes, I think, yeah, from Narcos to Nusantara, we see different experiences, but the
But
same
tell me more
problem.
about, yeah, about Indonesia.
Yeah, Indonesia is often perceived as Bali only, but I think Indonesia is more than Bali. But mostly, like European people come to Indonesia just for tourism places, kind of stuff. But we've got a lot of more than that, like cultures, musics, because Indonesia consists of more than 1,000 ethnics. Each ethnic has different uniqueness, costumes,
Okay.
beliefs, and etc. etc.
What's the official language for it?
So we are united by one language. It is Bahasa Indonesia. So
Okay.
those ethnics have different tribal language, but we are united in one language. It's Bahasa Indonesia. So everyone speaks Bahasa Indonesia to unite us to connect to each other.
Okay.
So
Okay.
it's I think Bahasa Indonesia is also one of the powerful uh, which Indonesia has, like to unite the diversity, the
Yeah.
differences between each ethnics. And then, yeah, I think when you think of a country, you have to think about whose voice are you listening to. And do you have a closing statement to
Well,
conclude all of this
maybe
conversation?
maybe just understand that everything have their own complexity.
Yeah,
So this is also a generalization. It's fun to explain complexity with a generalization, but everything have so many things to consider. So
mm-hmm.
you cannot reduce just one country to just one thing.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it
So
is.
if you acknowledge that, you could have like more mm, like better perspective of the issues that you approach.
Yeah, yeah, more issues. So we have to be like more critical in seeing viewing everything. And to conclude all of the conversation we have, a nation's identity should be a dialogue, not a stereotype. Thank you guys for watching and see you in the next episode of Podcast Across the Net.
Yeah, you
Bye.
could, but you can invite them to maybe leave in the comments like what's the
Yes,
stereotype
don't
of
forget to leave your comments.
about
Colombian, please.
Colombian. Yeah,
And
but
in Indonesian
Indonesian,
as
yeah,
well.
Indonesian as well.
Bye.